Hello and welcome to the SFCA podcast. Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer. From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho and everywhere in between. Miami is a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us. Welcome again. Wow, what a game last night. The big reveal. The Apple halftime show with Rihanna. Not bad getting the word out. 100 million plus people all at the same time. You know, an average 30-cent ad at the Super Bowl costs $7 million. But according to the advertisers, it is a great return on investment. Think about it. It's $7 million and you get 100 million eyeballs, actually 200 million eyeballs looking at you at the same time. Amazing. Busiest 2 months in South Florida are here. Both February and March are jam-packed with festivals and events. Thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate your continued support. A special recognition to all the sales teams and hotel managers and support staff that are on the call. We truly appreciate your support as well. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to this call. We share facts and figures and stats in South Florida tourism. We also have some entertaining and informative facts that we hope you enjoy. Who doesn't like food? And a little wine as well. Doesn't hurt. Today we'll speak to the one of the experts in the South Florida Food and Wine Festival. Ashley Shapiro is here to give us all the update and the lowdown. I hear they're almost sold out, and that's based on pre-pandemic levels. No more restrictions or anything else. So the demand is certainly there. I want to ensure that everyone is familiar with the chat feature. You're welcome to ask questions of the panel via the chat or the question and answer, and we will be giving away prizes. Ashley, at the end of her presentation, will be asking you a question based on the presentation or a random trivia question. That individual that wins will get 2 tickets to whatever she deems is suitable for you. Also, Andrew will be asking a question at the end of his presentation, and we'll be giving away a $50 gas card as well. So the only thing you have to do is pay attention to the presentation, ask the question in the feature, and then we will go from there. Now, if you do win for the first question, you're not allowed to win for the second. We obviously want to give everybody an opportunity. I'd like to introduce the panel to you today. As always, our in-house expert on all data and stats of South Florida tourism, Andrew Wobensmith from the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then Miss Ocean Drive, Ceci Velasco, giving us all the information on everything South Beach, as well as Ocean Drive. And there's a lot of things happening for spring break and beyond. And then our special guest today will be Ashley Shapiro, Associate Director of South Beach Wine and Food Festival. Why do we say food and wine? I don't know why. I think that's a common thing to do. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Ashley. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Excited to be here. And I know everyone mixes it up, food and wine, because Food and Wine magazine.
I think it's a natural.
Yeah, but we're wine and food, and we're really specific about it because, wine comes first, at least for me. So, yes, that's South Beach Wine and Food Festival. But, we're we're SoBe. Everyone knows who we are anyway. So thanks for having me. And should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
All right. The Food Network South Beach Wine and Food Festival presented by Capital One is coming up in just 10 days. So 10 days from today, we will kick off. And I'm going to share some overall stats about the festival, and then talk about what we still have available. So this year will be the 22nd anniversary of the festival. To date, we have raised over $34 million for the Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at FIU. So not everybody knows this, but we're really trying to get the message out. The festival it's about fun and food and drinks and all of those things, but it's also about raising money for the future of the hospitality industry. The Chaplain School has got amazing program for hospitality students. I myself am a graduate 18 years ago. So that's the reason we do this. So 13 of our we have 13 full-time employees that run the festival, and 7 of us are FIU alumni. And most of us started out as interns with the festival. And we actually have, it's not on here, but we over 2,000 shifts of volunteers come from the school, of volunteers in culinary, plating, front of the house, back of the house, You name it, students have their hands involved in this festival. So not only raising money for them, but we're also giving them opportunities to be part of a national event and network with different, brands and chefs. Last year we had over 60,000 attendees. We're looking at more like 70,000 this year. We'll wait till the festival's over to give that final number, but looking like 70,000 this year. We have actually over 115 events. We've really blown up this year. Over 115 events happening throughout South Florida. 450 chefs, winemakers, spirit personalities coming down this year. And thanks to the GMCBB, a study done in 2018, we have over a $34 million economic impact on Miami-Dade County. And of course, many billions of marketing and media impressions. So this year's festival with 115 events, we actually are kind of whittled down to like the last 6 or 7 events that are still available for sale today. And by next week, even less, but really focusing on the big events that we have on the beach. So our signature event is our Goya Foods Grand Tasting Village on the sands of South Beach between 10th Street and 13th Street. That's on Saturday and Sunday, our consumer days. Saturday, very close to selling out. Sunday, not far behind it. And that's from 12 to 5. You've got hundreds of spirits, wines, restaurants. We've got culinary demonstrations from your top Food Network talent. It's really a full day of exciting programming. And then we've just added, just this past week, a special ticket on Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. So 3 hours into the event, you can get a special ticket to come inside. And we will be having the David Grutman experience. So David Grutman and his team are putting together an amazing activation in the courtyard of the Grand Tasting and bringing DJ Khaled to perform. So that'll be an amazing way to kind of close out the weekend and a lot of fun. And that ticket is $150. So it is a discounted ticket from your regular Grand Tasting. And that is still available and a super exciting talent we have performing. Then heading north on the beach, just go about 6 blocks north, we've got our north venue, which hosts our evening signature events. Thursday night, we'll be kicking off with Burger Bash. Tickets still available, and we have a performance by Midland, the country band Midland, performing at the Burger Bash this year. Friday night, we have Triple D, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, hosted by Guy Fieri. Saturday night, we have Tacos and Tequila with Danny Trejo. And then on Sunday, we have our closing party with Bacardi. It's a carnival themed with carnival games, and that's hosted by Andrew Zimmern. And there are a few select tickets left to all of those events. I would say that by the end of this week, they will all be sold out, but right now we do still have those available. And then an exciting new event we have, this is a brand new event that's taken shape this year. It's at the Lowe's on Saturday. It's called FoodieCon, presented by Instagram. So we're partnered with Instagram and several other large brands to bring some of the most famous virtual sort of online culinary personalities. So Binging with Babish, Half-Baked Harvest. If you're on TikTok or Instagram, you've probably scrolled through and seen some of their content. So these great food creators who have really, as of right now, just a online presence, we're bringing them live and in person. We're doing panels talking about how they became just regular Joes doing, recipes in their kitchen to now having millions and millions of followers. I think the total number of followers we have of the 15 talent that are coming, it's something like close to 1 billion followers. It's really amazing. So that's a new event, and it's a different twist. It's not really about tasting food and wine. It's really more about understanding the experience and the journey of these digital content creators. So definitely a new experience for us. And the cool thing is we're now integrating some of the other talent. Andrew Zimmern is hosting a panel. David Grutman is hosting a panel. Guy Fieri. So we're bringing some of that Food Network and traditional talent in and having them be part of the digital content creators as well. And their tickets are still available for that. And then I would say, the other exciting event we have, it's a new event for us. For many years, we've been doing a drag brunch at the Miami Beach Bandshell. The drag brunch is sold out, but we've added on a tea dance. So on Sunday at 4 o'clock, you can buy a separate ticket to go to a tea dance with drag performers from our house. We have a performance by Thelma Houston. Kaylin Allen is hosting it for us, and tickets are still available to that. And it's, lots of great absolute cocktails and just a really good time to kind of close out the weekend. So What we still have available, those are really the highlights. And we're really excited for all the amazing things that we're doing in South Beach. And, we've got events, happening sort of in lots of different parts of town. But it's been an amazing response so far, and we're excited for what's to come. And I'm happy to answer questions. And I think I've got a good trivia question for everybody as well.
Okay, let me check to see if we have any questions online. Nothing so far, but I do have a question. How far north do you go? Do you go into Broward as well, or just the Dade County area?
Yeah, so for a few years we were doing a lot of things up in Broward County. We kind of slimmed that down. We have 2 events in Broward County. We've partnered with for the last few years the Hollandale Beach CRA, and we do an event at Gulfstream Park with all these Hollandale Beach restaurants, and we're also doing an intimate dinner there as well. So in Broward County, the only things we have are those 2 events in Hollandale. Then pretty much everything else is in Miami-Dade County, with the heart of everything being in South Beach. But we do have a couple events in Aventura, Wynwood, downtown Miami, a few things in the Grove this year as well, which we're excited about. But yeah, pretty much all Miami-Dade County this year.
Great. And so I wrote these down. So we got Burger Bash, Triple D, Taco Tequila,
Carnival.
Foodie Con,
Yeah.
the Tea Dance, and closing party. And then
Yep.
the tasting villages, Saturday and Sunday.
Exactly.
That covers it all?
Pretty much, yeah. There's a couple of select tickets to a few small things here and there, but those are really what we've got left to sell. And there's some of our best events, but there are our largest events, which is why tickets still available. We had our largest dinner program we've ever had, 45, I believe, plus dinners, and every one of them sold out, which is amazing. So people are ready to get back in restaurants, obviously, as well.
Great. Jay Kassar has asked, we can find tickets. I believe you get them online, correct? You could purchase them directly from the website.
Our website's right here at the bottom left of my presentation. So www.wff.org. That's where you can find all the available events, and that's where you can buy tickets as well.
Okay. And will there be an opportunity? Great question. K. Okpala. Will there be an opportunity to incorporate high schools and colleges apart from FIU?
We actually do work with a few other colleges that have culinary programs to help us with some of the culinary volunteer positions. I know Miami-Dade, we work with Miami-Dade, Florida Memorial, I believe. And actually we have a university that comes in from Denmark, and they bring a group of students from Denmark every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So we do work with other colleges. High schools, it's a little bit trickier because our events do serve alcohol. For the most part, we really try to keep our volunteers 18 and over. But from time to time, we do work with high schools. And anybody that has connections with schools and students looking to volunteer, please reach out to me. I've included my email address on here. It's probably too late for this year. We're pretty much wrapped up, but happy to have that conversation to see how we can incorporate other, eager students in future years.
Great. I have a question. How soon do you start the planning process? So I assume that as soon as this is over, you're already planning for 24.
I wish I could say that we waited until this one's over. We've already started planning for 24.
Oh, wow.
The shell of our program for 24 and who our honorees are going to be and things like that. So we start right away. But yeah, the heavy planning will start once this festival is over. We'll recap everything. We'll see what worked and what didn't, and then get started. And then our timeline is that our website goes live for the 2024 festival in October, and tickets go on sale usually in November.
Okay. And then Anna from Thriller has a question. Are you guys doing goodie bags for attendees? Maybe we can add Thriller Boat coupons.
We do have a grand tasting gift bag that we hand out to attendees at the grand tasting, but unfortunately those are already stuffed and ready to go. But again, if you want to email me, if that's an opportunity for future years, happy to share that information on how you get included in the gift bag.
Okay. And then Kay Okopola has another question. Are there any community events to make them aware of South Beach Wine and Food Festival?
Well, we do. Interestingly, this weekend we will have street teams out at the Coconut Grove Arts Festival, at Gay Age Festival, and the boat show, handing out our guides as well. So we do try to get out in the community and share information about the festival. But we've got billboards and street pole banners and lots of digital marketing. So that's how we get the word out about the festival.
Great. Also, in addition, our marketing team went out and distributed to all the full service hotels this past weekend. So everyone should have what they need, I hope. And if you need anything, let us know. Hopefully we have it to give to you. And then Ashley's email. Ashley, you have a live caption and subtitle popped up on the screen so they can't see your email address.
Oh, that's weird. Sorry about that. Can you see it now?
No, not yet.
That's weird. I don't see anything on my screen. Let me try stop sharing and then do it again.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes, now we can see it.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Yeah, this is my email address, ashapiro@fiu.edu. I am an FIU employee, as the festival does benefit FIU, as I mentioned.
Perfect. And question, you mentioned all the students. Is it a requirement for the students of FIU to partake in the South Beach, or is it just out of the, it's voluntary?
There are a couple of classes within the hospitality school that do require participation, but not the university as a whole. So there are a few students, and it's never a challenge. We always have amazing students that want to participate, and we have lots of different types of opportunities to participate. If you're not a culinary student and you're interested in photography, we have a media team that helps us. We actually have internships in our office and in the FIU office that are starting in September, so you can actually get really deep in with the festival and see how operations go. And if you're looking for a more in-depth opportunity, we offer that as well. So not a requirement necessarily for everybody, but we definitely offer it to anybody that's interested.
Cool. All right. Any other questions from anyone? All right. So what is the question for the trivia? Remember, you're going to answer via the chat feature, not the question and answer feature, but the chat feature.
Really
First
quick
person to get the answer right wins. Go ahead.
Really quick, I just saw a question pop up that is there an event in Overtown? And actually we're doing a brand new event in Overtown. I didn't mention it because it sold out actually 2 weeks ago, but we're doing an event called Overtown Eat Up with Marcus Samuelson right next to Red Rooster, which we're super excited about. So I didn't mention it, but it is happening, and it's sold out, which is crazy in their first year event for it to sell out so quickly. So so here's my trivia question. I named a bunch of musical talent that we have this year. Name one national talent that we have performing at the festival this year.
Peggy, DJ Khaled.
Yep, DJ Khaled was the answer.
Peggy, congratulations.
Khaled, accepted. It's Khaled.
It's Khaled.
Khaled.
Okay, Khaled.
DJ
Peggy,
Khaled.
Congratulations. I'll put you in contact with Ashley to get your tickets. Excellent. Thank you very much, Ashley. And we're going to segue now on to Andrew. Andrew, the virtual floor is yours.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Can anybody else see my screen?
I can see it.
You see it? Okay, then go ahead. I must have froze up.
Great. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy February and happy Monday morning. I know it's hard to bring your A game on a Monday morning, but I'll do the best I can. And thank you so much for the folks here who come here every month and have been sending me compliments. I run into some of you at other meetings and other presentations, and it's really great to hear all these compliments. And I think one of the things that I pride myself in is that every month that I come here, I try to bring the most recent, the most relevant information to share with you folks so that you can make decisions and hopefully walk away from here like you've learned something and that certainly you haven't wasted your time. And so today will be much like the other ones, but I have to say I labored a little bit more on this one. And part of the reason is now I feel like I'm a fountain of knowledge after attending the Travel and Tourism Research Association's conference last week in Houston, where I get to, it's kind of like FoodieCon, but it's for DMO researchers. So maybe it's not as exciting as FoodieCon for some, but for others, it's really a big deal. And so there we spend 3 days of going to workshops, listening to the top economists and people in the industry, Brand USA, who is our country's destination marketing organization. So they share so much information that's just so relevant that, and of course I find it very interesting. And what really, I think today's talk, we're going to talk about some of the things that they brought up last week, and it's fresh, and some of this stuff has not actually been released yet. So you'll be the first ones to actually see some of this information and react. So I have to warn everybody ahead of time. There's a lot. This is a really heavy presentation, in my opinion. There's a couple slides that will take a little bit of time to chew through it, but I think you're going to really appreciate it. And I really couldn't tell the story any other way. So with that, we will move on. Let's start out with some consumer research like I usually do every month. This was a really good piece coming from Destination Analysts, their bi-monthly survey of the American traveler. Their findings were Americans want to travel right now. And so they talk about 41% of Americans describe their excitement for travel at a level 10. So that's a 1 to 10. That's really great news, obviously, and shows a very high enthusiasm for travel in the short term. 84% of American travelers already have plans. A lot of them actually are also planning to go international. It is saying that half of American travelers actually have the time available to take a trip, and that booking behavior is also up. And there's a lot of short-term booking behavior, which we will talk about a little later on, because we are seeing this in our numbers as well. They also say that there's a rebound in the percent of Americans who say now is a good time to budget and add some more into their budget for leisure travel. So that's really great news, particularly since it was actually trending downward. And now we see as of last month, there was a start to a trend going back up. So people feel more enthusiastic about traveling for sure, and they are allocating more budget in order to do that. So finally, and we talked about this, and we are going to talk about it today, about a recession. The majority of people still continue to believe the recession is coming. A lot of people don't believe that it will be that heavy. They still believe they'll be better off financially from a year. They're also citing that travel prices are not quite as much of a barrier as they have been that will keep them from traveling. And this is obviously improved. This is actually improved from December. So this is the latest consumer research. It talks about a national level, but I'm going to start to dive into stuff that I think is a little bit more relevant, or in some cases, a lot more relevant. And we talked in the past about how these travel studies, they're good, but they don't cover everything. And Miami is not the same market as some of these other markets. And really what sets us aside is our high earners that come to our market, as we know. And I'll make some comparisons so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I think a lot of us know this intuitively, but when you look at the numbers, you'll see just exactly how that stacks up. How does our traveler stack up versus what we would potentially see around the country, and why that's important. So let's move on to some of these heavier slides. This study was really interesting, but this is the start of another conversation. More than half of high-income consumers are now living paycheck to paycheck. I found that to be quite interesting. When I first saw this study, I thought, this is a potentially heavy hitter, right? Because when we talk about economics, we talk about how they could be affecting everybody as a whole, but our people here, our tourism has been unabated for the last year. It has been nothing but stronger, growing, growing, and growing. But this study is showing that 64% of US consumers, this is approximately 166 million, we're already living paycheck to paycheck. It's up a little bit from the year prior, but the next line is really the big finding here. This is the buried lead. 9.3%, that translates into more consumers are now living paycheck to paycheck. But out of those, 86% are people that are making more than $100,000 a year. I thought that was a really big finding, because that does matter. Those are our folks, right? So what they are saying is that the economic conditions that we're experiencing right now are eating into people's pocketbooks, but even potentially more than it was before for these people who were not previously affected by these economic conditions, which is something I've been intuitively thinking about, but was unable to really substantiate. So it's also showing that some of these same people are also having more difficulty paying their monthly bills. So that said, there's still some similar levels of optimism, much like we just talked about. 4 out of 10 expect their personal finances to improve, which is a little better than what it was about halfway through last year. Finally, last but not least, for paycheck to paycheck people who think their financial situation is going to worsen, it's inflation that's really on their minds as being the principal reason why they will not be in a good position. While those who are not necessarily living paycheck to paycheck, they're more concerned about the general level of economic uncertainty. Now, that's not really specified, but it could be inflation, could be global factors that we really just can't talk about today, given that there's a lot of unknowns out there. And you know, this is a tourism presentation. We're not going to get into some of these world conflicts that could certainly affect us in other ways. So here we go. I think this next slide really ties in this particular study with what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, it's a heavy slide. I can't tell you how many times I went back to this slide over and over again, going through this. and making little notes and changing things. So a little bit of background, these two charts down there at the bottom were shared at a presentation last week that I was at by an economist, and they were really great, but he put them out there as being evidence of how well we're doing. And he's a very much glass half full type of person. But when I kept looking at these things, I didn't quite see the same picture that he was talking about. So I really had to dig in further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a top down here. I'm going to take you through that table. I'm going to walk you as quickly as I can through those other two charts. So maybe you'll understand more about what I'm talking about. So as you know, I just mentioned our visitors and how our visitors look like in terms of affluence as compared to what the rest of the country looks like. So that table up top here, we have a couple columns here. The first column are income ranges. The second column is really how that looks for our visitors, our overnight domestic visitors, and then finally, the U.S. actual household income, just as a comparison. So we see that last year, looking at our visitors, 39% of our visitors said they made under $100,000 a year. Almost as many said, actually 40% said they made over $100,000 a year. And then there was a fair amount of people that just don't answer the question because they don't have to. We don't pry too hard. However, when you look at the next column, you see what I'm talking about, is that in the United States, actually 75% of households they make 75,000 or less a year. So, and then 25% making over 100,000 a year. So what you can see is that we are certainly over indexing in terms of our people. Really, our people that are more affluent are our bread and butter, right? They're the ones that come here that can go to the Sobe Wine Food Festival, that can stay in our nice hotels and shop and do all those things that cost money, quite honestly, and that a lot of Americans really just can't afford to do. So that's the outline here. Let's jump down a little bit into these two charts. Like I said, I'll try to run us through. I actually made a lot more notes than this person's presentation had because I had to break it down in my head. And I think I'll try to do a good job here. So on the left-hand side, this chart is what's called excess savings based on reported personal income. What that is the money that's left over after you've paid your bills and purchased other goods, your furniture, your clothing, and so forth. That's actually left over, as they call it, excess savings. So let's start with this blue line. What is this blue line? This is the savings rate. Okay, this starts in the beginning of the pandemic for us and goes all the way through the end of last year. The savings rate is very important because that is a function of excess savings, right? Mentally, we can picture this. When we have more money coming in or we're not spending as much money, we can throw more into savings when that goes up and goes down. And we can see that in the beginning of the pandemic, it shot up. And we know why that is. That is because people started working from home. They also got COVID relief funds. COVID relief funds started coming in. So we saw a big spike in the savings rate. But that started to fall down. And then by around March 2021, it spiked and then since then dropped off. It just dropped off. I hate to use the word cliff, but that looks like essentially what it did. The savings started to drop off and they've continued to go that way. So that is what the savings rate is. If you look at those bars indicate by month how much money was on the balance sheet for us, right? In other words, how much money did Americans have set aside? I mean, you can see that is a function of savings to a degree. You can see after March 21, you see a high point that sort of maintained its high point of savings, even though we weren't saving as much, people still had money in their bank accounts, okay? And this is important because what you see starting about a year ago is a slide and people's bank accounts starting to go down, 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 okay? So the economist who was speaking last week said, well, what I see here is that, yeah, things are going down, but people still have plenty of money in their bank accounts. So there's still room to spend and there's still room for travel. And, you know, in some ways that's not wrong. Okay, but let's talk about what that really means. And that's why this chart to the right is so important. This chart to the right, those four areas are like mini charts for the one to the left, right? Because what this chart to the right is showing, it's breaking down whose savings are being depleted, what is driving this number here, and why is that important? So what we have here are those four areas are what are called quartiles. So it's the top earners, the second top, second to the bottom and bottom. Essentially, they're labeled top, third, second, and bottom. And what this is showing is by time period, by quarter, what those groups, what their savings look like, how far they went up, and how far they came down. Okay. So the first thing I want to point out here is that those red bars to the left are driven by high earners. Okay. When we see those numbers go down, understand that the numbers that affect that number the most as a group are those upper earners. So when those savings started to go down, that is driven by upper earners income and then subsequently their excess savings. So, and you can see that to the right there that actually, and I've labeled the quarters to give you an idea of how far it goes down. In 1 year's time, they lost 50% of their excess savings. That is big, right? I mean, if I looked at my pocketbook and say my savings goes down 50% in 1 year, that's a concern, you know? And so, as you know, I share every month. It's signal, not noise, as some people say. I want to get through and give you the facts, and that this is another way to definitively show that this economy is hurting everybody. But now we are seeing the erosion of wealth among those upper earners. Okay, that is important to us. The question, of course, is how much further down will it go? Well, it looks like it's on the way down. I see nothing going on right now that would indicate to us that it's going to go back up. So if you're a glass half empty and a half glass full person, this is certainly a situation where the glass is now half full, but I'm going to pick half empty because we are not filling up fast enough. So hopefully this was not too much delay on you for a Monday morning. You can go back to this slide. You'll have a copy of this presentation. And if you'll notice at the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see I put links to every single thing that I can. So you can look this up yourself and you can make those determinations and dig in more detail. So hopefully that made sense to some of you, clear as mud. But all I'm really trying to say here is that everybody's impacted, but you keep hearing economists, and there's two things. I'm going to talk about the second thing. Economists have been talking for the last 6 months about, oh, things are still really going well. A lot of people have been more rosy, and they give two reasons. You know, one of them is that look how much money people still have left over in their bank accounts. I've heard this over and over again. Perhaps a lot of you have also heard this as well. Well, what we can see is that that's actually not quite the case anymore as savings go down. And I'll mention one thing before I go away from this, is that when you look to the right, those four sets of groups, those four quartiles, that bottom group, those are the bottom 25% of earners, okay, in the United States. They obviously don't save a lot, but if you were to take those bars and size them up, you would see they had an even greater impact in terms of how much money they have lost. So what little savings they've put out, they have actually lost even greater rate. They're just not represented in that full picture. So it really gives you a sense of how much impact is going on right now financially. People have been spending a lot of money too, right? So, and we'll talk about that, but we talked about that a lot in the last several months about spending has been really robust. People are also carrying very high credit card balances. And again, we talk about inflation and we talk about interest rates. What is happening is that people are becoming more and more squeezed by these factors. Point number one. Point number two, the jobs report, right? As I put up here, this is the employment that's released every month, which is obviously a measure of how well we are doing economically. These numbers affect all of us. I'm going to just try to touch on this quickly. The jobs report, does it ever make sense? Two sides to the argument, because there's always two sides to the argument. I want to mention to you that I've always kind of wondered how these things are put together. Are they important? The other week they were talking about historic jobs number in the media, and you know, is it historic? I don't know about that. I think the person that puts together these reports every month is the painter in the upper right hand corner, Bob Ross. I don't know if you've ever seen him paint, but he talks about happy mistakes. As you can see here in his hand, he's got a very wide brush, and I think that's how they put together the jobs report. It's a very wide brush, okay, and depending on how you look at it, it can be looking good in one end and maybe not so good in the other. This is important. This is the second point I'm going to make in this discussion here, because this is the other point that economists keep pointing to say, well, you know, we don't really see a recession, or it's really not going to be much of anything because look at all the jobs that we've been adding. How can you be increasing jobs but be going in the wrong way economically? And so I posted two sides of the argument here. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth, but on one end, you have people here, this woman saying, holy moly, what a report. It's great. That's a really historic number, so on and so forth. But on the other end here, this other guy who I tend to agree with a little bit more, because this is how I've been thinking. He said, imagine someone told you that companies are letting temps go, at the same time create 517,000 permanent positions in January. So it is really hard to get your head around some of these things when you're seeing one thing and maybe this is not really what you're hearing as much. So the argument just comes down to some simple things, is that there is a wide brush that's used to paint these numbers. What I'm saying, on one end, they're saying we had a job increase. On their end, this other end, they're saying, no, we had a job decrease. And those numbers come down to the adjustments that they make every month. And as I've mentioned, these reports are never right. Every month they put one out, the next month they're revising the one from the previous month, as well as the same period last year. So why is that important? Again, I think that we're starting to see here that these things that economists have been talking about are not necessarily telling the full story. So hopefully I didn't spend too much time on that. These are probably the heaviest slides out of this whole deck, but I think you can, I know our folks here are pretty smart and you can get this. So what does that mean? Well, this is our GDP forecast, again, coming from the economics, Oxford Economics, along with another analyst firm. This was released last week at our conference, and they predict that a U.S. recession could be here as soon as Q2. And so they say here, all the way over to the right, that they do expect to see quite a bit of a decline in Q2 and another one in Q3. So this is what they're saying. And the 4 reasons down here at the bottom, which are probably not a surprise, these are the reasons why they are putting these numbers there. They're saying persistent high inflation, aggressive Fed monetary policy, these are our interest rates and a way they're trying to control the money, negative spillover effect of slower global activity, what's going on out there, and then finally, the weaker corporate earnings. All of these things are going to be pushing us into recession, according to this person. So will this happen? This is obviously a forecast. It could be adjusted at any time, but those are the 4 reasons, and I agree. I believe that those are the reasons for sure as to why it is we are headed towards a recession. Heady stuff. Finally, although, another slide that I thought was really interesting, and again, this takes a lot to chew through, but I'll try to walk us through quickly enough. This was a little bit of optimism coming from the same presentation. He said there's further room for consumers to spend on travel. Well, what does that mean? He talked about the patterns of the way consumers spend their money and how they've been spending their money and what we see. And in the past, people tend to spend more on the services, but during the pandemic, people switched from paying the services to buying more goods. Okay, so as you can see here, durable goods like cars, furniture, stuff like non-durable goods, buy food and clothing, but services, they did not spend as much on services. Why is this important? Well, within services, travel is considered a part of these services. So what this person was saying was that, well, consumer spending on services was usually about 66%. I'm sorry, it is 66%, but it's normally 70%. So what he's saying is that in this switch back to the way in which we normally spend our money, well, he's saying we're going back to that, and therefore he expects us to spend a little bit more on travel than we have in the past 2 to 3 years. So that to me was a little bit of good news to share with you. Let's hope that he's right, and that while people are still strapped, maybe they're going to stop spending so much money on these hard goods and decide instead, you know what, I'm going to stop buying things and I'm going to put a little bit more money away for travel. Some forecasts coming from Brand USA last week. This is some of our international markets and where they think we're going to be in the upcoming several years. The basic story here is that right now they do not see international travel fully recovering for 5 to 6 years. So it is a pretty long picture. However, some of the stuff they talk about, which I'm not going to share, is actually China. China is super impacted by these things. There's virtually no air service there. They've canceled flights. We know what's been going on in China. And so I'm not going to include China because China is not a really large part, or really just about any part of our tourism economy here at all. But looking here, what this is really just telling us is these 3 particular markets, Brazil, Colombia, and Argentina. We know Colombia came back really strong and is continuing to be here. What they're saying here is Brazil and Argentina, no surprise, but they do not expect these 2 markets to come back in full force for several more years. And we do know those reasons are largely economic as well as visa issues. They just still can't get enough visas out there. So this is Brand USA and International Trade Administration's most recent forecast. Real quick, Europe looks like a better story. It looks like we expect to see European markets come back pretty fast. They're already coming back pretty fast. And so what we see here is that some of these markets are going to make a full recovery according to this forecast in the coming year to 2 years. So we're looking forward to welcoming more people from the UK, Germany, Italy, France, all these markets. But basically, this looks like a faster recovery than some of these other markets that are truly, truly challenged. Why could this be? Well, so barriers to visiting the United States, they asked the international travelers from all over the world what would prevent them from visiting the United States. So most of the cost, it really comes into 3 buckets. Number 1, concern. They said the cost of airfare is just too expensive, followed by concerns about gun violence. Then the United States is generally too expensive. Once again, the exchange rate's not favorable. concerns about my personal safety, and then some visa issues. So I want to just point out what's really relevant here is that I actually worked in consumer research before I came to the Bureau, and I worked on these same studies. And I can tell you that visitors who don't want to come to the United States, tourists, they always say that it's violence. It's always violence, the reason they don't want to come to the United States, which is a little perplexing, but understood. They hear things. They may not have experience with the United States, but they hear things about violence that leads them to say, hey, I'm not coming to the United States. So that's not really something I'm pointing out here. What I'm pointing out here is that really it's cost. Once again, that's prohibiting them from coming to the United States is really their number one and number three issue, followed by, like I said, visa wait times and the application process. Again, just real quickly here, price as a reason not to travel. Looking at these top markets into the United States, they asked this question a year ago and then asked it again, how much is price a reason why you're not traveling? And we can see that has increased across the board in 1 year's time. Looking at Brazil, went from 39% in January 2022 up to 54%. And every one of these markets here is saying price more and more is a reason why they're just not going to be able to travel. A little bit of news, not going to read through this whole slide, but looking at our airport is doing so well. We've actually overtaken Orlando as the busiest airport in Florida for the first time in 6 years. We had record performance last year. Orlando did too, but we still beat Orlando. It's been a great year for tourism. We were still short 1 million international travelers, but we made up with that volume in terms of domestic, and a lot had to do with the success of adding carriers, low-cost carriers, flights, options from all over the world. We're still even saying, though, recession is still a concern, but that said, January was actually another record month for us at MIA, having several 100,000 more passengers coming in than they did during the most busy time in January 2020. So hold on, we're actually getting closer to the end. Thank you for holding on so far. Looking at our Florida markets, hotel performance for the last 28 days. This is important because these are our competitors right now, folks. Right now, and all these people trying to come down here from these cold weather markets, they're looking at Florida. A lot of them don't care where they go in Florida, so long as they get into Florida and get into the warm weather. And what we can see here is that occupancy is really strong across our state, as well as the average daily rates and RevPAR. But what I want to point out here is that Miami-Dade recovered faster than the other areas, just about all areas of Florida. So as a result, we are further ahead of the curve than these other areas. And you can see that by the percent changes in these metrics year over year. The other areas of Florida are picking up by double digits, but we're really not. We're still doing well. This has been a really strong January, but our growth is not what these other markets are getting right now, because I believe we have just progressed and grown faster than them, particularly in the wake of the start of the pandemic. Real quickly, these line charts just simply indicate what our market looks like in terms of the last 52-week performance. The straight lines are what happened last year. The dotted lines are the year before. The finding here is that these gaps closed, and by the end of this last year, really, we were performing what we were the year prior. However, December was a little weak in terms of occupancy. Still, we started out the year really strong. Average daily rate is a similar story. We recovered. However, December was not really as strong as we would have liked, but coming into this year, we're still seeing some positive, momentum. RevPAR, if you're a hotelier, this is what matters to you. Your revenue per available room also reflects those two other metrics, and you can see a little weaker, but still, on par roughly with last year. Okay, folks, you've held on this long. We're almost done. These slides I share every month. This is really a full review of how we're doing with our hotels. Our hotels are the beating heart of our industry. What do we see here? What's on the books for the next 90 days for what it looks like in hotels, as well as short-term rentals. Both are important to our visitors. What we see, as I mentioned, the top hotel, strong demand for the first quarter of this year, as we've talked about. Those blue bars indicate what's on the books. Those dotted lines show what it was a year ago. So we see we have been going above the watermark consistently for the next 2 months. However, if you look at April, we see that divide, as we saw a little bit last month, but now I'm showing you there's more of a divide, as we're just not keeping up with the bookings that we were. Now, if you're a hotelier, your information not look the same as this. This is not indicative of every hotel in our market. This is made up of about 125 hotels out of our 560 hotels. So it is a sample, but this is what we're seeing, and it's been consistent. Looking at that bottom chart, short-term rentals, they are not seeing the momentum that they saw last year. The only area that looks bright for them is at the very end with those little letters and numbers F1. So it looks like the bookings for hotel right now do not look that strong for hotel right now for that period of time, but short-term rentals looks like there's actually a little bit of bump and they're actually doing a little bit better than they were. So will these numbers hold? Well, that's a great question. I think we'll just touch on that and then we're just about there for questions. Finally, looking at what we look like for hotel on a monthly basis for the next 11 months. This is really where we're headed, folks, in terms of tourism here in Miami-Dade County. And what I've talked about, again, February and March this year, our booking pace is doing very well. It's above last year. But what we can see here in that chart to the left, it is not keeping up with last year for the entire year. So that has been the story for a while. And that table to the right really explains it, with that first column being the month. And then those next two columns being, well, what did it look like? What did these months look like at the beginning of this year and then last week? What you can see is that it's sliding. The pace is actually slowing down. It's not picking up. That is the question that I pose and I am answering. And the answer is that we're actually seeing less and less momentum for the rest of the year. So take note, this is just the hard facts. Don't shoot the messenger for this information. You probably knew this was coming, but we do see a slowdown. One thing to qualify is last year was a fantastic year. We are comparing to last year, but still, that being said, the booking pace is receding. It is not getting stronger further out. Finally, as I mentioned, travel activity, it's being driven by short-term demand. Even despite economics, the higher earners are starting to become more challenged. We do believe a recession is unavoidable, but we don't know the impact. It's going to be inflation and monetary policy are probably the most to hamper domestic travel activity and recovery. International travel is rough. They have financial problems too. Brazil, Argentina, not doing so well, but potentially European markets coming back a little faster this year. Overall, Florida tourism is great. We know that some of those reasons are airports and air service that have been added. And finally, we know that Miami-Dade tourism metrics, they've closed the gap. Short-term booking is strong. However, as I've mentioned a few times now, it's soft after Q1. We know that our ADRs are not going to grow really much at all. They have plateaued. So if you're a hotelier, so I'd say we are, and you probably knew this, your revenue per available room figures are not going to be what it was last year. So that was a mouthful. Hopefully you got something out of it, were able to follow along. Happy to answer questions. You'll get a copy of this presentation after this call.
Very educational, very educational. Thank you very much. Question for you. I looked real quick. Can you go back to slide number 18? 2 slides back. There you go. So we're starting to see the dip in July or May?
Well,
May,
the
right?
first column represents what it was at the beginning of this year when we looked at the rest of the year. But then we looked at it again last week to say, is that pace holding up? Is it a percent change going up or down? And the answer to that is it's actually going further down.
Okay. So dramatic drop in what months? July, August?
Yeah, really starting in, as we saw the dailies from the previous slide, it starts in April. We just start to see softness in April, and we are seeing more and more softness even further out.
Now, question is, are we back to pre-pandemic levels, or is this, we're still better than we were before the pandemic?
We are better than before the pandemic. However, we don't compare anymore to, and if you're a hotelier, you know this very well. You know, a lot of markets are still looking at 19 as a comparison. Our folks, we don't care anymore, right? If you're a hotelier, you're looking at 22 right now. You know, you're not concerned about 19. But yeah, the good news is that we are still doing phenomenal in terms of comparisons to prior years. We've actually just absolutely, you know, by the end of 21, we had recovered on a spend level, on a hotel level, a volume of visitors, in spite of the challenges.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, and I don't take any more time and move on to Zessi, but so they compare this year to last year, although last year was an anomaly. It wasn't your typical year. I would think that 19 would be more of a realistic trending year based on 18, 17, 16, so on and so forth. So why would they compare this year to last year?
Well, there is no new normal anymore. So 19 is not considered the benchmark for us anymore. I mean, it's good to compare because you can see how much growth has happened since 19. But I would venture to say 22 is probably a little bit more normal. because we went so high in room rates and RevPAR that it's certainly not going to go back to 19. They're certainly going to still stay high because we've been doing so well. So that's why we're using 22.
Got it. All right. Thank you for the clarification. All right. So you got your question?
I do.
All right. Everyone ready? You're going to type your answer in.
I hope you all followed. This is a little bit
This is
harder,
for a $50 gift card.
or maybe $50 in eggs. I don't know. You pick whatever's most valuable.
Exactly. Well, that'll probably get you about a dozen eggs at today's current rates.
Right.
Maybe 18 if you're lucky.
So I mentioned in that GDP slide that there were 4 factors they cited as to why they say we're going to recession. I'll name 2 of them. If you can name either one of the other 2, then you will win. The first 2 are obvious. They said persistent high inflation, aggressive Fed monetary policy tightening, and there was 1 of 2 others. We need 1 of the 2.
Let's see, visa crime fights, reluctance to spend, negative spillover. Well, now they're flying through less savings, credit card debt. Let me know which one.
Negative spillover.
Negative spillover. Heydrich is a winner again. Cool. Heydrich is becoming a pro at this.
But good answers.
Excellent. He won last month as well.
He nailed it. Wow.
Congratulations, Heydrich. You won yourself a $50 gift card. Let me see.
All right.
Okay. And then, Ceci, you're going to be giving a card away at the end of your presentation. So keep that in mind.
I am. I will.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your thorough information. We look forward to the deck, and then I will share it with everyone. And now we move on to Ocean Drive and South Beach with Ceci.
Hi, how are you? Good to see everybody. I still see Andrew's face. Maybe that's me. I am, you can hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
Oh, great. Okay. My internet is going in and out and flickering. So if it pauses or something, let me know. Good morning, everybody. I am going to try to get this all in within the 7 minutes so that we are not running over. March. Interesting. South Beach Wine and Food Festival that you hear me. And then we have March. So capitalizing on what Andrew was saying is that people are living paycheck to paycheck and they're putting a lot of money on their credit cards. We have the opportunity to have a multitude of free activations that are happening throughout South Beach, mostly Ocean Drive, Lomas Park area. So I'm going to send this out to Miguel and hopefully he'll get the digital collaterals to all of you. The city has really asked us to get this out to our guests because there is so much going on and it would be wonderful to have them full of our guests. It's all about health and wellness. So there's going to be workouts and yogas and marathons and walks and everything throughout the month of March. So I'll tell you every single weekend is going to have something, but we'll get it out and we'll make sure you have some digital collaterals. And if you're in the district, we're going to be passing out 5x7 cards so that the front desk will have something to give and hand out to their guests. So I'm waiting to help support the city with this since they are investing so much. So that first weekend actually is a winter party. So if everybody knows that's going to happen, they've been doing this annually. That is going to be on one part of Ocean Drive in the park, but the other part is going to be the United First Responders Music Festival. They are having 9 bands. It's going to be, so they're going to be actually very well-known bands, highly professional, but they're all police, fire, first responders. I know they have some one group coming down from New York. It is everything from rock to jazz to this. So this is the schedule we're waiting for. It's going to Ocean Drive, and it will be a lot of fun. Here again, not something that you have to pay for. So yeah, enjoy themselves on the beach. I'm not really sure what I can do about that, Miguel. Sorry.
Okay.
So there's going to be a display, and part of Ocean Drive is going to be closed. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The second weekend, it's really a wonderful first time ever in the US from the Netherlands. It is the King of the Courts. So the city is actually, they're building a volleyball arena out on the sand. And this is an international volleyball tournament. They're going to have two, the King of the Courts and the Queen of the Courts. So this is going to be another health and wall type of thing happening. So health and wellness, anybody interested in that, it's going to draw a lot of people because it's from the Netherlands. It's the first time in the States. We're hoping that they continue to come. I know several hotels have given the actual participants a break and a discount, and we really appreciate that because in order to bring great activations, we also need to accommodate them. It's hard for these activations, the principals to drive in from, the airport. They have to be close by. So I really appreciate all of my South Beach hotels that help out and step up to the plate. So that is going to be the second weekend of March 11th. The GMCBB is really helping and promoting all of this. I think that you're going to be able to find all of this on the Miami Beach Live website. And again, we'll send that out to you because we want as much of this information at your fingertips as possible. There's going to be more concerts. The Marlins is going to be putting an MLB kind of kickoff. There is going to be a headline concert again on that second weekend. Everything ends around 10. The street will be closed, so you'll be able to walk around in Art Deco weekend-ish. Hopefully, it's going to be kicked up just a little bit. It's March, and we're just expecting a lot of wonderful people to come and take advantage. The third weekend, very excited. It is called Art on the Drive. And basically it is what they have in Calle Ocho. It is what they have in Coral Gables. It's Carnival on the Mile. And the Kiwanis is going to be producing Art on the Drive. They have tons of wonderful stages. They're in contracts with and talks with securing all kinds of different music from country to jazz to Latin, everything you could think of. I think Arturo Sandoval is going to be coming, so I'll be like front and center to hear him. As soon as we have that lineup, we'll send it out. But that is the third weekend of March. They also are going to have more pro volleyball because they have that arena out there. So every weekend, you're going to see some kind of volleyball tournaments going on. Activations in the Muscle Beach, so you can be outside working out. I know Crunch is involved with this. And then on the very last weekend, we have Frankie Ruiz, who's going to be coming. And Frankie Ruiz is going to have all kinds of different competitions. There's going to be runs, walks, concert. So live music, activations. Art on the Drive is going to take up most of Ocean Drive, Lummis Park, lots of kids programmings for that. So stay tuned for those kind of information. I'm wanting to get this all together in one place so that Miguel can send it out to everyone and you'll have a go-to place that will articulate and have listed all of these different schedules, music and everything. So very happy. Oh, Lisette, good. My beach is launching a press release. Oh, there you go. So Lisette is actually really, I don't know how she's all kinds of things. We're really excited about working with the city and the press release to come out. Like I said, I'm going to be hand delivering things. So that is really taking on a heavy lift on this one, but we really want the concierges to please send your guests. They're going to have a wonderful time on Ocean Drive in March this year.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ceci. All right. Question. Your presentation was choppy, so maybe you shouldn't be on the presentation because it may have not heard of it. So maybe you have a trivia question would probably be best, a general trivia question if you want to answer, we'll ask one. And then hopefully we will have a lucky winner.
What's the first weekend in, what is going to be happening the first weekend of March on Ocean Drive? There's two things happening, either one.
Winter party.
Winter party. Yes.
Winter party. Perfect. And
King of the Courts.
Zarian Liu. Excellent. You won a $50 gas card. You can reach out to me via email. I'm going to reach out to you as well, and we'll get that to you electronically. We're set. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ceci.
One more plug, every single Sunday at 5:00, right on the north part of Ocean Drive between 14th and 14th Place. We still do our Ocean Drive Promenade music series. We are booked through the end of the year. It's a lovely series. We get 100 to 200 people every single Sunday. So please come out for that. If you haven't enjoyed it, it is magic. So come out. I'm there every single Sunday. Next weekend is going to be Danny Mixon, who is a jazz legend.
Cool. Congratulations. Congratulations, Arian. Thank you very much, Ceci. Let me go ahead to my show notes. All right. In closing, I want to wish all of you peace and love. Happy Valentine's Day to you all. Gentlemen, if you haven't gotten the flowers, the chocolates, and the gifts, now is the time. Tomorrow's not the best day. And for those of you, I've got a personal note. As a concierge, I think the worst time, and I think a lot of concierges will agree with me, the worst time you could ever have a romantic dinner in the year is on Valentine's. Restaurants are overwhelmed. It's a whole frustrating situation. It's definitely not a positive, memorable moment. So if you want to play a little bit different, I would say maybe tonight or after, whatever the case may be, but that's totally up to you. Oddly enough, and this has been proven before, the best night to have a nice dinner at the top restaurants is when? On Super Bowl Sunday, because everybody's at home watching the game. So all the restaurants are, for the most part, okay. Something to consider moving forward. Congratulations, Peggy Jimenez. Congratulations, Hyrick. Congratulations, Zirian Liu, for winning the gas card. Hyrick won the gas card. Peggy Jimenez won the tickets for the South Beach Food and Wine. We will see you again next month. Stay safe, be well, and stay warm. It's going to be in the 50s. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone. Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer. From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho, and everywhere in between. Miami's a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us.